if any of this is used to try to gain power over another, which is the power of exploitation, right? If any of this awareness would be used, if one is seeking this awareness in order to gain power, then the awareness is blocked. Fortunately, there's an inherent safeguard on awareness that the nature of consciousness doesn't reveal itself unless one comes in pure love. Because consciousness itself is love. And now, we are going to, if you would, come with me, we're going to move from a purely intellectual discourse on the matter, because we've just looked at it rather logically, and we left off essentially with the awareness that all form is formlessness, manifest, and all formlessness is known as form, is known through form. And at the same time, still having the discernment to see the difference between formlessness as that which is eternal, and form, which is that which is temporary, without getting into confusion, and seeing that form is an illusion, which is another way to say it, is that the mind is an illusion. There's no mind. There's the appearance of mind, which is really simply the appearance of thought. And when thought is finally seen as what it is, you see that there's simply thought. It's there. There's no my thought or your thought. There's just thought. It's like an element in the air. Thought. And to come into direct awareness of consciousness, of eternal formlessness, is to know love, is to come into contact with true love, which is peace and also ecstasy. When one comes into contact with it, one discovers ecstasies unknown, unnamed, unbound, unfiltered, unfettered. And this ecstasy, this incredible joy that one touches, this love, is pure intelligence. It contains everything. And one knows it as oneself. And so everything that you need to know, you know, when you touch this, when you come into contact with this. So, formlessness reveals its nature to you, to put it like this. Formlessness reveals itself to you, and in being aware of the nature of formlessness, you immediately, without delay or hesitation, or without any time, become aware of the total nature of form. All form. Instantly, instantaneously. And so you become obviously aware of the whole psyche. That's nothing. And yet, everybody is spending so much time trying to learn what we call psychology, and understand psychology, understand the psyche, to understand the mind, to try to fix the mind. Mostly it seems that people try to understand psychology in order to manipulate and control and to gain power. But when you come into awareness of the formless, which is love, and therefore of all form, let's not say the first thing you see, because you see it all simultaneously. There's no speaking of first, second, third. There's just that. There's just intelligence, there's just awareness. But in this awareness, you see clearly that, first of all, the mind doesn't exist. And insofar as the psyche appears, it's really rather irrelevant. And it's the easiest thing to understand. And so devoting a whole arm and leg of science to the psyche is really rather, it's kind of silly. And pretending that the psyche is so complicated is just ridiculous. Only one who wants to hide from themselves pretends that the psyche is difficult and hard to understand. It's not. The whole of the psyche, the conscious and the unconscious, can be seen through in a moment. It's nothing. It's nothing. It's nothing. Compared to the eternity, to the infinity, that is the entirety of what is, the psyche is nothing. Nothing. And when you touch the formless, you become aware of the totality of the formless as yourself, and therefore what you call the psyche or the mind or thought or memory appears within you to be just a tiny little nothing. And you see the whole thing because there's finally distance between you and that, to put it like that. And so now it's time then, I suppose, to talk about what the psyche is, what thought is, what we call the ego structure is. I don't like that word very much. I don't really use it, that word ego, because it's been so corrupted the way that we talk about it. But this word, we have to broach this word without getting antsy, but desire. Because thought is desire. Thought and emotion are one. You can't separate them. You can pretend to, but you can't. And thought and emotion, which are memory, which is desire, which is what you call the ego, or the personality structure, which is form, which is time. Right? You see where we're going here. And so, subject-object awareness is a manifestation of desire. And so then, obviously, formlessness is desirelessness. And formlessness is love. Love is desirelessness. And desirelessness can be known directly. And desirelessness is not the opposite of desire. It's not a condemnation of desire. There's no condemnation. If you condemn something, you condemn everything. And if you condemn, there is no other. That's the point. So if you condemn anything, you condemn yourself. Because as long as there is awareness of the manifest, and therefore awareness of division, there's awareness of desire. And whatever arises in awareness cannot be condemned, because if it's condemned, then basically, to say it, one enters into hell. So the minute you go around condemning, you put yourself in hell. You put yourself in suffering. So that if you would be liberated from suffering, you must cease to condemn, which means to love. And so to know love is to know peace, which is desirelessness, which is movementlessness, stillness. And desire arises. It will always arise. But you watch it, you can see it. And it doesn't mean that you start some war on desire or some crusade against desire. That's just stupid. That has no meaning. It means that you have a choice. You can no longer say you are compelled. Because if you look at the nature of desire, which is to say the nature of thought, it's mechanical. It's on a track. It's a thing of conditioning, of habit, of compulsion. And so every desire, the way that desire runs, it's mechanical, it's on a track. And so desirelessness, or love, or peace, or freedom, it all means the same thing. Consciousness means being free from the compulsion to run the track. You can simply sit still. Everything will come up and confront you. It's not that there's no awareness of anything. Everything will run up to meet you. Everything. All of the desires, objects, and you only know desire by its objects, right? Because when the objects of desire disappear, desire is revealed to be something other than what you thought it was. And the objects of desire arise from memory. And so basically, when you sit still, memory, thought, will arise and come at you, obviously, but it's not coming at you, because the you that you would say it's coming at is just another object of memory. And so what happens simply is memory arises and it disappears. But there, within the complex field of memory, there are all these associations between different aspects of memory, which create the illusion of the one who remembers, and therefore the one who feels compelled to chase or to run from. But that's all an illusion created by memory, projected by thought, and then believed as it's projected, as it appears to be. But when there's clarity, you see it's not actually like, it's not so. And the nature of what is desirelessness, is love. And so to simply give yourself to that is to be able to bear witness to desire, and therefore to consciously choose to not touch it, to not touch thought, to not touch memory, or to touch it if you want to, but then you take full responsibility for the consequences, right? You take responsibility for it. So there's no more blaming God, or blaming the devil, or blaming anybody for anything, because you always have a choice. And that's consciousness, which is itself the absence of choice, because choice appears when there is confusion, when there is uncertainty. Do I choose this or that? I don't know. That's uncertainty, which means there's a lack of clarity, which means that there's inattention, there's divided attention, which means that there's still some kind of game playing going on. There's self-deception happening on some level. Otherwise, there's instant clarity about what is wanted, and therefore there's no real choice. So in consciousness, there's no choice. There's no real choice, but there is the appearance of choice. And insofar as choice appears, well, there's a choice. And that is to touch the world of form or to stay aloof from it. Inwardly. And why would you choose to stay aloof from the world of form? Because you see that the you that would approach it is mechanically hung up on chasing aspects of form in a way that's totally self-destructive. And so for the sake of not being self-destructive, that is for the sake of love, one stays in love. For love's sake, one stays in love. For peace's sake, one stays in peace. Simply put. And peace means that in stillness you find total fulfillment. In not doing, in not acting, you find true action, which is being totally still, which is happening of itself. It's not something you do. You don't have to do anything anymore. You're done doing. And everything that needs to be done will be done. But this isn't some doctrine of just sitting around being passive. Because the one who would be either passive or active is completely dissolved. Rather, it never even was. It's more than simply that the false self disappears or dissolves. You see that it never really was. And insofar as it appears to be, it's an illusion, which is mechanical on a track and therefore governed by physical law, which doesn't need a separate doer or an ego to do anything, so that the ego is merely a conception. It's merely an idea. It doesn't actually have any power to affect anything other than to eclipse peace of mind. So consciousness is taking care of itself, and form is taking care of itself, and it's really consciousness which is governing all form. And so therefore you see that consciousness, which is pure intelligence, or pure love, or pure peace, or God, you could call it that, the divine, the source of all, the great mystery, great spirit, is governing everything, in charge of everything, doing everything. And there's no you separate from that can do anything. And so there's total freedom. There's nothing to worry about. Nothing to fear. Nothing to fear. And so, whatever must be done can be done and will be done. And this isn't the drawing of some conclusion. This is the invitation to let go, which means to forgive everything, past, present, and future, to forgive everything, to see that everything is perfect, right here and right now, and that you can simply rest in the presence of love that is eternally what you are, here, beyond time and space. You can trust it. You can trust the peace that is here, always upon inquiry, upon examination. The truth, the peace, the love of formlessness, of consciousness, of eternal being is always here, and it can be looked at, it can be examined, and it can be known directly beyond the mind, closer than the mind, and you see that the mind can't know it, thought can't know it, memory can't know it, experience can't know it. Experience meaning something with a beginning and a middle and an end, which is memory, thought. It can be known more directly than that, because it's you. And so it's closer to you than the body, it's closer to you than the mind. The body and the mind are both manifestations of it. You can call it grace. Everything is grace. Everything is made of grace. Grace is the substance of which everything is made. And you can know this directly. You don't need a book. You don't need belief. That's the beauty about it, is that all words can, and all words will come to an end. And actually this realization is what happens when all words do come to an end. Because all words must come to an end. All true logic has its end. And at the end of logic is this. At the end of form is formlessness. All ignorance must come to an end. All ignorance must come to an end. And what's finally revealed to be is wisdom, awareness, intelligence. It's all there ever was, all there ever could be. Consciousness, which is love. There's no way around it. And when you see this, you see the nature of time and space, and all the myriad layers that one could say comprises time and space, or that are aspects of time and space. The nature of the aspects are known, and so there's no fear, and one can drop all of one's superstitions and enter into something real. No fear. And one sees that one's true self is totally uncorrupted and uncorruptible. Nothing can touch you. The body can be corrupted, and the body will be corrupted. And so will the mind, or what's called the mind, memory. Memory is subject to corruption. All form is subject to corruption, but what you are is not form. And therefore what you really are is beyond birth and death, beyond time and space, beyond hurt, beyond suffering. And when you know that, you know that you are eternally free, unbound, untouched, untouchable, beauty itself. And this and only this is that which can never be taken away. Nobody can give it to you. Nobody can take it from you. It's here as the nature, as the truth of who you really are. Free, unbound, unbroken. Forever. The eternal source of everything.